you want to listen to this episode of the Business Growth Architect Show with Mike Montague, because we talk about living in your playfulness. Mike gives you some very specific ideas on what makes you come alive and how you can figure out what your area of playfulness might be and how you can step into that a little bit more. He also mentions things like how to take some time off and how to give yourself permission to do that and find a good balance. He also will ask you a tough question, which is along the lines of what you are afraid of. So to listen to this answer and more in this interview, please go and listen to the full episode. Hello, fabulous person. Beate Gillette here, the Growth Architect. Welcome back to the Business Growth Architect Show, where we bring you cutting-edge business strategies from some of the world's most successful entrepreneurs, business transformation experts, and visionaries who want to help you to scale your impact. Look for one tangible strategy that you can take back and implement right away. And now back to our guest. Hello and welcome back. This is your host, Beate Gillette, and this is the Business Growth Architect Show. Today, we have Mike Montague on my show, and I am so excited to have a more playful episode. Let's just put it this way. Mike, welcome, and thank you so much for being here. And tell everybody, what do they need to know about you?
Sure. Thank you, Beate. It is really exciting for me to be here, and I like talking about this topic for sure. Most of my career in my adult life has been around business growth. I work for Sandler Training, so we do sales training for companies, and I've been doing that for 11 years. I am one of their public faces. I host the podcast there, How to Succeed podcast, and I do all the public trainings, big workshops, and things for large companies like Uber or Thermo Fisher Scientific. But in the last couple of years, the other thing you need to know about me is what you mentioned about the playful stuff. So I invented a company called Playful Humans as my COVID baby over the last 2 years, but I've been playing my whole adult life. So I started on the radio and DJing karaoke shows and weddings and stuff. In my 20s, I opened for Billy Idol and Frankie Valli and played Toby Keith's Bar and Grill. I now host game shows for companies, either online or in person here in Kansas City, or you can hire me to come out, and we do corporate team building events and stuff like that through classic TV game shows. And so it's been a super fun career, but it is really, for me, all about becoming the best version of ourselves and building our company to make an impact and to do something worth telling people about or worth pursuing with your life's energy, right?
So you already touched on so many things. So we already have 65 things to unpack. So I think what immediately stood out to me, Mike, is that you talk about something that a lot of people, I'm going to put this, I think, in parentheses, really love doing, which is sales. And then you go and you say, let's all play and have fun. So there's going to be a lot in there. So the idea about the sales part, which is a lot about strategies and techniques and connection and relationship building. And then there's the playfulness. So talk to me about, what is strategy for you? What does it mean in your work and in your personal life and with your COVID baby?
Yeah, I think it's a really interesting question for how I approach life, because I would say that it has changed. 11 years ago, I was really into social media marketing strategies and sales strategies. And Sandler definitely teaches that. We teach techniques and strategies and behaviors, but we also have this attitude component in our success triangles. And that's the one that jumped out to me, that I noticed, if we just think about the Pareto principle and the 80-20 rule, what I've kind of noticed is, when people are working in their strength, when they're playful, when they have the right attitude, they take care of the big rocks. Everything else takes care of itself. You can outsource things you don't like to do, or you can shore up your weaknesses by finding teammates or other systems or processes to work on those. But my strategy that I would just like to share with everybody today is kind of living in your strengths and your playfulness, the stuff that makes you come alive. There's a great quote by a former Supreme Court judge named Howard Thurman. He said, don't ask what the world needs, ask what makes you come alive, and then go do that. Because what the world needs is more people who have come alive. So it's such a great quote, but I think that's really my strategy for almost everything now, whether it's in sales or, customer success or business or even accounting and spreadsheets. Like, do what makes you come alive, because you're going to do your best work. You're going to do other things that we all talk about as optimizing things. You're going to practice. You're going to play with it, get creative. You're going to work hard when you need to, and you're going to put your full energy into it when you love something. When you don't, I've just found over the last 11 years of consulting, especially in sales, if you don't believe in the product, if you think the marketplace stinks and nobody's buying what you got, if you don't believe in the company you're working for or your own sales ability, it doesn't matter what technique or strategy I give you. It's not going to work because your heart's not in it and you're not attracting the right kind of energy. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. I have such a great example because what I did is I kidnapped my fiance and I booked us into a golf resort. Now, neither one of us plays golf. And the whole point was that I wanted to be the main and the only attraction for the weekend away. So he couldn't go anywhere and do anything other than, in your words, but play with me and do things. So we went to the zoo, we did fun things. We, of course, and I didn't know this when I signed up, this was sort of the timeshare in disguise. And so the sales guy shows up. Number one, he humiliated us. Number two, it was like everything in the sales book of stuff where you go like, do they even still do that anymore? What kind of homework do you need to do? Are you still in school? And I'm like, did he just say that to us? So it was these things. And I'm thinking, this is to your point. So if I approach something from the perspective of the strategy, what's the biggest closing strategy? And clearly in this particular company, and then when we did our homework, we found out how much bad reputation that they had, rightfully so. Everybody said the same thing. They all had the same experience. So guess what, Mike? Their sales training to their salespeople is that shock and awe, humiliate them, shame them into proving something. And so to your point now, what would you say to somebody who goes like, yeah, but Mike, come on, there's a job. I need the job. Okay. This is the way we're doing it over here. You telling me I need to be in my strength, but I need the job. What do you tell them, Mike?
So I think there's two things, the individual and the organization. On this show, you're talking to a bunch of leaders and organizations that need to optimize their performance of their employees. Here's what I know. People working in their strength that are engaged in their job perform 35% better than those who are not. And people that are trying to shore up their weaknesses and working really hard at stuff they hate actually perform 26% less effectively than the average employee. So if you just want to shift your results, that's a massive 50% increase in just putting people in the right seats, right? That's not revolutionary consulting advice, but doing what people love gets better results. It's scientifically proven in research studies over and over and over again. Now, when I think about individuals, there is a certain threshold, right? I was a starving artist in my 20s. Radio pays so bad. My highest base salary was $20,000. And where I live, it takes about $42,000, I think, to live comfortably and not worry about paycheck to paycheck and go backwards. So I had to do a lot of other things that some I liked and some I didn't like to make up that extra money. I had to do endorsements and live deals, and I had to work weekends and nights doing other things or freelance and do extra work just to make ends meet. And I think there is a certain part of a job that we all need to realize we're not going to like. So I hate the quote, if you find what you love, you'll never work another day in your life. I think that's complete BS. I'm a big football fan, and we just watched Patrick Mahomes play, and he loves what he does. He's getting paid like $500 million to play football. But guess what? I'm still sure there's days that he doesn't feel like practicing, or he's got to pay his taxes, or he's got to go do a press thing because there was some story broke that he doesn't want to talk about, right? There's still days he's not going to like what he's doing and there's a job. So if it's temporary, or if there are some things in your job you don't like, that's just part of being a human being. It's not all sunshine and rainbows. But if you don't feel passionate, energized, engaged, in love with what you do, then you need to find something else. There are other jobs out there, and you can start in a small way to get started and work from there.
Yeah. So I think from a strategic perspective, and, you know, and this show is all about strategy. So what I want our audience to really listen to, what Mike's saying here, is that there's a difference between your right to be ridiculously happy 24/7 or whatever the 8, 10, 12 hours that you work, because there are things about our work that we don't like. And there are things about our work that we do like. I always say you just have to be good enough to know that once you can outsource what you don't like, so to know if they're doing a good job or not, because otherwise, you know, how would you even know? Or the second piece of that is, Mike, where I believe that if we have a sense of curiosity about something versus this allowing us to actively dislike something, right? Because if I say, that's so interesting, what hinders me from doing this? Or why do I have such a resistance to picking up the phone and making the damn call, right? What is it about that? Am I ashamed? Do I not believe in what I do? So I think if I come in with curiosity, there is something in there. You said something really, really, really important, and I want everybody to listen to this, that there is no constitution for entrepreneurs, business owners, professionals that says you have to love everything you do all the time. Because you're absolutely right. It just doesn't exist. So now, going playful, what do you do when you catch yourself and you go, man, gosh, not that again? And you don't feel playful about something. What do you do? Do you have any tips for us?
Yeah, that's great. I think that's a really good question that I don't get very often, because most of the time people ask me, how do I play more? How do I get into more of what I want to do? But I think you bring up a really interesting point there, because there are some times where I go, gosh, I'm a creator, right? I just don't want to hit record. I don't want to turn the camera on. I don't feel like it. I don't feel like I look good today.
Bad hair day.
Good. Like I don't want to bring that energy. Thanks for the bad hair day. Yes, I don't have that problem, but I do still feel like, you know, some days it's just not the day, right? And I think there are some questions you can ask yourself when you're feeling this. Again, is it like short term or long term? Do I always hate doing social media? Well, then maybe I should hire somebody to manage that. Like you said, we can delegate that. Is that I don't feel like doing social media today, which is another story. Is that something that can be put off so you can delay and things there and come back to when it is your strength? I think a lot of people overwork and they burn themselves out. When you're talking about entrepreneurs, there's no constitution either that says you have to work 80 hours a week and burn yourself out. Most of the research, modern research today, shows that if you work more than 60 hours for more than 6 weeks in a row, you produce less than if you had just worked 40 hours a week. So you can give yourself permission to take a break and come back to it with the right energy and attitude. But here's the best one. I think the best question you can ask yourself is, what am I afraid of right now? And because a lot of times what holds us back is what we don't like, is we feel like we're going to be judged, or we're not going to do it well, or we don't pick up that phone for a prospecting call because we're afraid they're going to say no. And so a lot of that is your own internal head trash that you can change. That if you really believed the person was going to buy, that you were going to help them, that they were going to be so grateful that you called, that they praise you and give you a positive review online, you would pick up that phone even if you didn't feel like it, right? We'll talk a little bit in Sandler about your prospecting beliefs. And if you really believe so much that you had like the cure for COVID or the cure for cancer, you would want to go tell everybody about that. If you were that energized and that confident in your belief, and I've heard you talk about abundance mindset before too. If you believe that good things were going to happen, that there was plenty of business out there, that you were going to get positive results, you would do most of the things, even if you didn't really like the activity. If you don't like sending invoices in the the QuickBooks or managing the project in Asana or something like that. Okay, great. That's not your thing. You're going to do that anyway if you're that excited about the results. I think a lot of people just miss that. It's a lot of times comes down to the attitude and the motivation, and we're holding ourselves back because of something that we fear.
I couldn't agree with you more. I think that the idea, people always say to me, because I'm an execution machine, I don't know if that's because I'm German or because I just had such desire to do anything but where I was at, right? I needed to get out of that really bad. And then you just make it a habit and then you keep up the habit. I think one of the key elements that, to your point, what am I afraid of, is sometimes you just don't ask yourself the question on whether or not you like it or whether or not you feel like it. In the mindset work that I do, we talk about the commitment, and David Nagel, my mindset trainer, talks about it, the commitment that you make. So if you say you're going to do it, it's a commitment you make for yourself. And then if you break the commitment to yourself, you just proven to yourself that you're not trustworthy, you're a liar. And if you don't believe that you can execute on your own word, who are you to ask other people to do the same thing?
Right.
So that's really the crazy part about this mindset and the abundance portion that we just talked about, is that it is okay to not like it, but you do it anyway. That's what you got courage for. That's what we're here for. That's really the human experience or the human condition is, am I going to give in to that? But I don't know, is there a benefit in asking myself, do you ever ask yourself, do I feel like it or not? Or do you just go, this is what I said I was going to do, I'm going to do it?
I do. I think it is important to have a lot of self-reflection and self-awareness, especially in your business. And I love the way you phrased it. I don't know if it was on purpose or not, but you said, do I not like it or do I not feel like it? And I think those are two different things. If it's something you don't like, figure out a way to not do that. If it's something you don't feel like doing, that's something you can get over. You can do anyway, right? So for me, it's hard because I feel like there's two sides of the same coin. I've really been trying to reevaluate my life and decide how many of those things actually even have to get done. Because a lot of it is societal pressure that says I have to have a get on TikTok now. Everybody says, oh, you have to get on TikTok. It's blowing up. Well, I don't have to. We've done business for thousands of years without being on TikTok. I'm pretty sure I can survive without it. If I love it, great, go do that. But how many of these things that you're regretting or avoiding are things that you actually have to do? I don't know that there's a whole lot that fall into that bucket. So I want to, flip things back towards the positive here and say, could you be doing instead that could make an even bigger impact? So I don't have to set an alarm or a block off my calendar to make sure that I eat enough pizza in a month. I love pizza so much. I know that it's going to happen, right?
No brainer here.
Yeah. And so there are other things too that we find time for no matter what. And unfortunately in our society, a lot of them are not great. So we can watch 6 hours of Netflix and binge a show, but we don't have time to make our prospecting calls or, to balance the books or whatever it is you're trying to avoid or make a difficult decision. Firing somebody is another one like that that's something that we don't like to do, but sometimes we have to do that for our business. So I think there are things that fall into that bucket, but other than those few exceptions, a lot of times I think we'd just be better off if we looked at something that we would prefer to do that as long as it's going to move our life forward. So here's a good framework for you, Beata. I like to think about the stuff that's difficult to start is usually good for me long-term. The things that are easy to start are usually bad for me long-term. So if there's a short-term window where I have to learn how to use a new project management system, or I have to learn how to do graphic design or my website or social media or something like that, that's a short-term pain that's going to pay off and be very good for me and my business for the whole rest of my life. That's a good decision. things that are easy, like sitting on the Netflix, ordering a pizza, having it delivered, and, ignoring all the work that I have to do is going to be easy for you now, but long term, it's going to be very bad for you and your business. So when I think about my discipline, I try to make those choices. What's going to be hard for me to start now? Starting a workout always stinks, but finishing a workout always feels great. I've never regretted doing it, right? So how do we look at those things that are maybe counterintuitive and balance short-term and long-term? And as long as we're making decisions that make our lives and our businesses easier tomorrow than they are today, that's a great decision.
Yes. And to your point, to add on to that, I think there's 3 pieces to that. There's mindset. What is it about it that I am either wanting to do it or not wanting to do it? Skill set. Do I know how to do it? Is the skill set what prohibits me from doing it? And finally, the action set. Am I actually going to do it, executing on it, and having the discipline to continue? And do not confuse one with the other. There are three items on why we're not doing something. So I want to shift gears now and talk a little bit about playfulness, because you said that your COVID baby is Playful Human. So some must have happened and you go, darn, we are not having enough playtime. So tell us about that. What's going on?
Yeah, I think I've always been in this mindset. So I think I was already in this spot before COVID. So I'm 42, which means I turned 40 right before the pandemic. And I also was in a position where I finally got to some level of success or leadership, that there wasn't too many more rungs that I could climb in the corporate ladder. And I could kind of see that even if I did, it wouldn't add a whole lot of extra fulfillment or success to my life at that point. I think there's other reasons to do it, right? But I got to a point in my life and career, and whether you want to call it a midlife crisis or renaissance, I also had a health scare. I had a kidney stone that got stuck and ended up in the hospital, and found out I have a rare kidney disease and things, and just all of these stuff coming together all at once in midlife. I was kind of like, if I keep following down this path, I don't see my life getting significantly better or significantly changing between now and retirement, whatever that looks like. So for me, I wanted to take another hard look at what really makes me happy, what would get me excited to work for the next 20 years, what would make me want to jump out of bed and go run as fast as I can for something. And I think, especially since you talk to entrepreneurs, there's something about doing a project just for you that's different than doing work for other people. I get to make the decisions. I get to interview who I want on the podcast. So I do 2 podcasts. How to Succeed is for Sandler. We talk about the 3 things you just mentioned: attitude, behavior, and technique. I interview experts from around the world. We have 500 episodes, and it's a nice corporate podcast. I get paid to interview people and do what I love. It's a great gig. But there are also some people I can't interview, and I can't change the format, and it has 2 million downloads, so I can't really make it mine. So the Playful Humans, I interview whoever I want, whenever I want, and I've committed to a weekly schedule. I did a little bit better than that last year, so there's about 80 episodes out now. And I talk to rappers from Tag Team, or famous athletes that played in the NFL, or famous clowns. I have an interview coming up that hasn't aired yet with Bozo the Clown from Florida.
Bozo.
And all kinds of, yeah. Like that's about as big as you get if you ask someone to name a clown.
Yeah, Bozo's world renowned.
Yeah. So that to me gets me fired up. That makes me want to go and interview that. I don't ever say, oh gosh, I got to do this podcast again. It's like, oh, I get to talk to somebody that's in the NFL, or Justin Guarini from American Idol and the Diet Dr. Pepper commercials. He's a little sweet in those commercials and stuff. I was like, that's really fun. I get excited for days coming up to those interviews. And that really changed the game for me. And I think the more I look into it, I want to help other people realize what it is for them. So don't pick my thing, pick whatever it is that makes you come alive and that you loved doing. And I love interviewing people and being on podcasts. And I used to interview my brother and sister for fun when we were playing in the backyard, make them race and then interview the winner. How's it feel to be the winner? Oh, it feels great. Good. Stay tuned for our second race. It's coming up here in just a minute. And we would like play and do that kind of stuff. And so it really feels like that makes me come alive, and doing the game shows as part of that too has been so fun. And COVID, finding that really got me out of the COVID depression. I was in a bad spot. And I think, I'm a pretty healthy individual. So I didn't really go off the rails and do anything damaging or stupid for my career. But I was at the point where I was like, I cannot sit here another day and not do something for myself and to get my energy back up and meet people and engage with people. That somebody as outgoing as I am, quarantine is not a good spot. So after a year of that, I finally got into a place where I figured it out, and doing virtual game shows started. And then we were able to open up a physical location and do them live again. And it's been so much fun to hear people laugh and to see a room full of people clapping and cheering and stuff. Really energizes my soul. And so that project has just been super fun for me. And I'm really hoping to encourage other adults to figure out what their play is and to take their life to the next level.
You said something very, very important. I think that for especially the extroverts, not just extroverts, introverts, obviously equally, but extroverts, I think, are suffering from this a little bit more, just because it's against our nature to be solitary or to be locked up or to be in one space. Our energy comes from dealing with other people. But you said something, and I call that the sensory deprivation piece of COVID, where we have had such sensory deprivation that we don't remember, because a habit is 21 to 90 days. And we are in such a multiple of that. So all of our habits now are permanent because we've done this again and again and again. So I booked us tickets to go to Lindsey Buckingham, Fleetwood Mac, legend. And the minute, and what an artist. So the minute the first note was played, there is a visceral reaction your body has to, I missed this. This is what, it's like your whole body is like refilling with this energy. And it's the same thing with laughter, so I think that, to your point, let's just add that maybe, in this episode as a strategy is, what's a piece that makes you happy in that? Is it laughter? Is it music? Is it writing? Is it performing? And then find an outlet of some sort to get that nourished as much as you nourish anything else. Because, and again, you said this earlier as well. So I really like this episode a lot because you touched on so many things. It's not just about the work, but it is about also stepping into your power as a human, as a playful human, as a real human, and recognizing there are other aspects of us. And that, to me, if I look at this from a spiritual perspective, Mike, and maybe I'm going completely bonkers on you right now, but I think
that's how I feel about it.
So COVID, I think, was a big wake up call for a lot of people about what matters to me. And then we thought we're going to, everybody changed, and then everybody went right back to what they did before. And now here's the other wave of Omicron. And now everybody needs to rethink it again. I don't think we got the message the first time, which is why I think this is happening again. So what would you say to somebody who now has listened to this episode and said, man, Mike's right. I got to do something. Where do we make them start?
I love that. And it's shameless plug time. So if you go to the website, playfulhumans.com/quiz, I designed this fun BuzzFeed style quiz. It's not scientific at all, but there are 10 different playful personalities that it might come out as. And I think rediscovering what play means to you is a key one. And I love what you said about the difference between work and play. A lot of people think those are opposites. They're not. Work is basically play that you have to do, which makes it not play anymore. The opposite of work or play is just sloth. It's just laying around, being lazy in that deprivation tank that you talked about. So find out what it is that turns you on, that gets you energized and engaged in life. It could be, like I said, one of 10 things. So maybe it's the outdoors. You mentioned some of that. I like that for me too. Maybe it's physical movement. You like dancing, jumping, running, that kind of stuff. Maybe you like puzzles and board games, or maybe you like social aspects and planning parties. That's a big part of my playful personality, is being the director. I like to facilitate fun for other people because it makes me feel good to see other people having fun. It could be something just like telling jokes or comedy type stuff. I think a lot of people see play as frivolous, and they think of like Steve Martin, arrow through the head, silly kind of person. And that's not what I mean. If that's you, great, go do you. But if you feel like you're a serious business person, an adult, well, it could still be some side of sports or exploration or learning or puzzle or game. There's lots of things that you could do, but whatever makes you feel fully present and alive, and it's just for you. It's not for anybody else. It's not to impress anybody. You don't have to monetize it. Like, it doesn't have to be a big deal. Just something that you're doing to recharge your batteries, doing something that you love. I build Lego. So I built myself in Lego here, and I have other things here too. I got an Adidas shoe. I have a Star Wars Lego collection. It's just a fun, mindless puzzle for me to do something rather than sit on the couch and watch television. At least I feel like I made something at the end of the activity. So go find out what that is and just do it. Give yourself permission to take 30 minutes a day or a few hours on the weekend and just go do what it is that you want to do to enjoy this ride of life while we're on it. Because that's something else we learned in the pandemic, is we don't know how much longer we have. And I feel like we're not getting more playful and more social. We're getting less playful, more stressed, and more isolated. And so we got to do something to stem that curve back the other way.
Yeah, absolutely correct. All right. So other than the quiz, where else can we find you?
It's Playful Humans. So it's really easy to find on any social media. Just search for Playful Humans. The podcast, wherever you're listening to this, that would be a good thing as well. And then if you happen to need help with sales training specifically, I do that with Sandler Training. You can find us at Sandler Training on anything you are looking on there as well. I appreciate you asking. Beata, you want to play a game?
I have not played a game in a while. Let's do it, Mike.
All right. 3 questions. The game's called Survey Says. You've probably seen this one on TV. We surveyed 100 people. All you have to do is guess one of the top answers. Here's question number 1. Name a kind of place where people pretend to be paying attention. Where do people pretend to pay attention?
When they are listening to a talk from their CEO.
Oh, there you go. Work is the number 3 answer. School and church were number 1s. This is one of my favorite questions. Name something cats and men have in common.
You have to push them off the bed.
There you go. I'll take that. Love sleeping is the number 1 answer. Being lazy, sneaky, hairy, and like petting. All right.
Yes, hairy. Yes, definitely. I could have thought of that.
All right. And last one. You've done great. You got 2 out of 2 so far. During a power failure, name something you can still turn on. During a power failure, what's something you can still turn on?
Passion.
There you go. Spouse is the number 4 answer. I like that. Flashlight, radio, water faucet, and oven were the other top ones. Thank you for playing. That was so much fun. I appreciate you playing along with me.
Thank you so much for playing with us. Thank you, Mike. And that's it for us today. Thank you for listening and watching the Business Growth Architect Show. I enjoyed having you here. And for accountability, just take one of the strategies that you have heard, one thing that you can implement in your business immediately. Please leave comments. Don't forget to like and share this show. And if you have any questions about business, please put them in the comments. We are here for you. We're here to support you and help you to grow, build, and scale your own business. For more advice, please check out our website in the show notes below. Thank you again. This is Beata Gillette, the Growth Architect, and goodbye.